Have you ever wondered what would happen if your mother-in-law moved in and never left? Not just for a week or even a month, but for so long that the walls you once called your own started whispering in a different voice? I used to think I was prepared for anything, until the day Lorraine arrived with her boxes, her memories, and her quiet expectations. The rain had just started to tap against the windows that Saturday morning, blurring the view of our small, lively neighborhood in Portland. I remember the smell of wet earth drifting in as I opened the front door, the world outside wrapped in the gentle gray haze that always seemed to settle over this city. There stood Lorraine, Marcus's mother, a suitcase in one hand, a stack of cardboard boxes at her feet, and a look I couldn't quite read, something between exhaustion and determination. She barely paused before stepping inside, her voice steady. "Thank you again, dear. I hope it's not too much trouble." She didn't smile, not exactly. Instead, she gave a small nod, as if bracing herself against something heavier than the Oregon drizzle. I glanced up at Marcus, who was already moving toward the boxes, his jaw set, eyes darting to me in silent plea. "Let's make this work." "Mom, you can take the guest room upstairs," he said, his tone light, too light. "We've got fresh sheets on the bed." Lorraine hesitated at the bottom of the stairs, clutching her handbag. "I'll try not to get in the way," she murmured. I forced a reassuring smile. "It's your home too, Lorraine," I said, and for a brief moment, I meant it. That was just 3 weeks after her husband's funeral, a small, somber service under a cold sky. I could still recall Marcus's trembling hand in mine as we watched Lorraine stand alone by the graveside, her black coat too thin against the wind, her shoulders squared in a way that made her seem unbreakable. That day, Marcus had whispered, "She shouldn't have to go home to an empty house." I agreed, and when he suggested she move in, just for a while, my first instinct was to help, to be the kind of daughter-in-law who made things easier. The first few days went by in a blur of practicalities, unpacking Lorraine's boxes, clearing shelf space in our small kitchen, making tea in silence. Every evening, the three of us would sit in the living room, the television murmuring in the background, each of us waiting for someone else to speak. I told myself the awkwardness would fade, that we'd find a rhythm. I'd always thought of myself as adaptable, empathetic, someone who could smooth out any wrinkle, patch any tear. But small things began to shift, almost imperceptibly. My favorite coffee mugs vanished from their usual spot, replaced by Lorraine's floral cups. The couch cushions were rearranged. Even the scent of the house changed, as if new air had crept in with her. One afternoon, after a particularly long day coordinating a marketing campaign for my makeshift home office, I walked into the kitchen to find Lorraine standing at the counter, scrutinizing the spice rack. "You keep your cinnamon next to the oregano?" she asked, her tone laced with gentle disbelief. I tried to laugh it off. "It's just how I've always done it. Makes sense to me, I guess." She shook her head, smiling tightly. "You'll find it's easier if you group things by cuisine. I'll take care of it. Don't worry." The next morning, I couldn't find the coffee filters, and the pantry looked like it belonged to someone else. The first time I confided in Priya, my best friend since college, it was raining again. We walked through Laurelhurst Park, umbrellas bobbing above us, the city's skyline shrouded in mist. Priya's boots splashed through puddles as she listened, her brow furrowed. "So she's reorganizing your kitchen now?" she asked, a note of disbelief in her voice. I shrugged, kicking at a soggy maple leaf. "She means well. I keep reminding myself, she's grieving. Maybe I'm being too sensitive." Priya stopped, her eyes kind but direct. "Amelia, it's okay to want boundaries. You can be supportive and still have your own life." I nodded, but the knot in my stomach tightened. "Marcus keeps saying it's just for a little while, but I can't help feeling like I'm the one who's in the way." She squeezed my arm. "Just promise me you'll take care of yourself, too." That evening, as I walked home under the streetlights, the city buzzing quietly around me, I rehearsed what I might say to Marcus. But when I opened the door, the smell of Lorraine's pot roast greeted me, rich and familiar, the kind that made the house feel fuller, almost cozy. She was humming softly in the kitchen, her back to me, while Marcus typed away on his laptop at the dining table. "Dinner's almost ready," Lorraine called over her shoulder. "Marcus, you should close that computer." "Amelia, I made extra in case you're hungry." I hung my coat and forced a smile, catching Marcus's eye. He smiled back, weary but grateful, and I felt my resolve slip. Later, as we sat around the table, Lorraine asked about my workday. Before I could answer, she glanced at her son. "You know, Marcus, when your father was alive, he always made sure to be home for dinner. Family time is important." Marcus didn't respond. I stirred my food, suddenly aware of the silence stretching between us. The days began to blur together. Lorraine started making subtle comments about our routines, How late we slept in on weekends, how much takeout we ordered, the way we sometimes left dishes in the sink overnight. I tried to brush it off, but each remark felt like a tiny stone in my shoe, impossible to ignore. On Saturday morning, I found her in the laundry room, folding sheets with brisk efficiency. "You should use less detergent," she advised. "It'll make your things last longer. And it's good to open the windows once in a while to air out the house." I managed a polite nod, but inside, frustration simmered. It wasn't all bad. Sometimes Lorraine and I would sit together in the living room, sharing tea while rain tapped against the windows. She'd tell stories about Marcus as a boy, how he once tried to build a rocket out of soda bottles, or the time he got lost in the grocery store, but found his way to the bakery for free cookies. In those moments, I saw the warmth beneath her brisk exterior, the love she carried for her son, and the grief she couldn't quite put down, but the boundaries blurred more each day. One evening, I came home to find Lorraine on the phone in the living room, her voice low and urgent. "Yes, I'm living with Marcus and Amelia now. It's different. I'm sure I'll get used to it." She glanced up as I entered, her expression unreadable. Marcus and I barely had time alone anymore. Our quiet nights together became rare, replaced by group dinners and television shows chosen by Lorraine. I missed the easy laughter we used to share, the way Marcus would reach for my hand when he thought no one was looking. One night, after Lorraine had gone to bed, I sat with Marcus in the living room, the city's lights flickering through the rain-streaked window. "Do you think this is working?" I asked quietly. He hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. "She just needs time, Amy. It's hard for her, for all of us." I wanted to believe him, but the distance between us felt wider every day. A few days later, Priya and I met for coffee at our favorite spot, a small, bustling cafe with mismatched chairs and the best chai in town. The air smelled of cinnamon and espresso, and the windows fogged up from the steam. Priya leaned forward, her eyes searching mine. "You look tired, really tired." I sipped my drink, staring into the foam. "I am. I don't know how to make this work anymore. Every time I try to talk to Marcus, he asks me to be patient, but I'm starting to feel like a guest in my own home." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You can't keep giving and giving, Amelia. You have to ask for what you need, too." I nodded, but I wasn't sure what that meant anymore. That weekend, I ran into Tomas Rivera, our neighbor, while bringing out the recycling. He smiled, his hands tucked into his jacket pockets against the chill. "Hey, Amelia. How's everything going next door? Haven't seen you and Marcus around much lately." I forced a smile. "We've just been busy. Marcus's mom moved in for a bit." Tomas nodded knowingly. "My sister went through something similar last year. It's tough, sharing space when you're used to your own routine. If you ever need to vent, I'm just across the hall." His words lingered in my mind long after I went back inside. Days turned into weeks. Lorraine's presence became a constant, a new gravity around which our lives orbited. She started cooking dinner every night, leaving little notes on the fridge. "Don't forget your lunch, Amelia," and tidying up the living room before I got home. She called Marcus at work to check on him, sometimes more than once a day. I began to notice how my own habits changed. I spoke more softly, tiptoed around the house, stayed late at work just to have a few moments alone. In the evenings, I'd watch Marcus and Lorraine from the doorway, her fussing over him letting her. I wondered when our marriage had started to feel like something I was only visiting. One evening, as I lay awake listening to the rain, I realized I didn't know how to ask for my life back. I wanted to help Lorraine heal, to support Marcus, but I also wanted a home that felt like mine, a place where I could breathe, laugh, and simply be. So here I am, telling you my story, hoping that somewhere out there, someone understands this strange, quiet unraveling. Would you let your in-law move in? Let me know in the comments. The first shock wore off, but a new rhythm never settled in. Days blurred together in a strange, anxious harmony. Lorraine's slippers shuffling across hardwood before sunrise, the scent of her strong chicory coffee mixing with the light roast Marcus and I preferred. I'd try to focus on my emails at the dining table, but Lorraine would drift in, humming softly, her presence heavy and expectant, like she was waiting for a cue I never quite delivered. It started innocently enough. One evening, after Marcus had retreated upstairs to finish debugging some code, I found Lorraine in the kitchen, sleeves rolled to her elbows, carefully rearranging the spice rack. "Amelia, darling, did you know cumin shouldn't be next to cinnamon? It muddles the flavors." She smiled kindly, so I bit my tongue and nodded, even as I felt the first twinge of displacement. The changes accumulated, towels folded in new shapes, our living room throw pillows swapped for ones Lorraine recovered from her storage unit. Even the playlist that used to fill our kitchen, my indie favorites, Marcus's jazz, was replaced by a gentle hum of golden oldies from Lorraine's Bluetooth speaker, perched like an intruder on the counter. But it was the unsolicited advice that finally made the air feel thin. Over breakfast one Sunday, croissants I'd picked up, orange juice Lorraine insisted was too acidic for mornings, she perched at the edge of her seat and said, "You know, if you ever wanted children, you should consider it soon. Fertility is a precious window." Her words floated out, casual but piercing. Marcus choked on his coffee, then busied himself with his phone. I forced a smile. A day later, she asked about our savings, whether we had enough set aside for unexpected emergencies. I wasn't sure how to answer. Her questions seemed practical, but the message beneath them stung. Our lives, our choices, were suddenly open for inspection. Family dinners became Lorraine's domain. She'd invite cousins I'd met once or old friends from her book club, arranging everything with a polite, steamrolling efficiency. I'd come home from work to find the dining table extended, Lorraine stirring a pot of stew, Marcus carrying folding chairs from the garage. My name rarely came up in the planning. "Hope you don't mind," she'd say. "I thought it would be nice." Marcus tried to reassure me. "She just needs to feel useful. It's temporary, right?" But his eyes darted away when I pressed for a timeline. He hated confrontation, always had. When we first moved in together, we joked about him being Switzerland in every family debate. Now I felt like I was standing alone on a shrinking island. One night, after the last guest left and Lorraine retreated to her room, I found Marcus staring blankly at his laptop, the glow reflecting worry lines I hadn't noticed before. "She's lost, Amelia," he whispered. "I know it's hard, but can we be patient? Just a little longer?" I nodded, but inside, resentment was taking root. My solace was the city itself. On Thursday afternoons, I met Priya at Stumptown Coffee, the glass windows foggy from the drizzle, the baristas shouting orders over the low jazz. Priya always brought levity, her laughter contagious, but today I barely managed a smile. "So, how's the house guest situation?" She nudged, hands wrapped around her mug. I hesitated, then unloaded everything. The kitchen, the questions, the suffocating feeling of not belonging in my own home. Priya listened, eyes widening. "Amelia, you can't just let her steamroll you. Boundaries exist for a reason. Does Marcus even see what's happening?" I shook my head. "He's trying, but he's stuck between us." She leaned in, voice low. "You need to talk to him. Really talk. If you don't, this resentment isn't going to magically disappear." I swallowed the lump in my throat. I just wish it didn't feel like choosing between my marriage and his mother. Leaving the coffee shop, I found myself wandering through Laurelhurst Park, the canopy of trees dripping with rain. That's where I bumped into Tomas Rivera, our neighbor with the friendly eyes and always a wave from his porch. He jogged up, umbrella in hand. "Hey, Amelia, everything okay?" he asked, genuinely. I hesitated, then shrugged. "Just family stuff." Tomas nodded knowingly. "My wife's mother lived with us for a year after her surgery. It was rough at first. Took a while to figure out where everyone fit." His words landed softly, a reminder I wasn't the only one navigating this storm. Back home, the little things continued to pile up. Lorraine started leaving printouts of articles on healthy routines on the kitchen counter. She'd ask about our weekend plans, then suggest alternatives, usually involving a family outing or a home-cooked meal. I caught Marcus wincing more often, but he never said anything. One Saturday morning, I tried to claim a small victory, sleeping in just for an hour. But I woke to the sound of Lorraine's voice outside our bedroom door, asking Marcus if he wanted pancakes or waffles, her tone bright and insistent. By the time I emerged, the kitchen was bustling and the table set for 3, complete with place cards in Lorraine's handwriting. I felt like a guest in my own life. The miscommunications multiplied. I'd mentioned needing space for a work call, only to find Lorraine vacuuming just outside my office door. Marcus, sandwiched between my frustration and his mother's grief, took longer walks with the dog, disappearing for hours. One evening, after a particularly awkward dinner, Lorraine's casserole, Marcus barely touching his plate, I slipped outside for air. The porch was cool, the city's hum a distant comfort. I called Priya, the phone pressed tight to my ear, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," I admitted. "I feel invisible." Priya's reply was sharp, but loving. "Then you have to make yourself heard. You deserve your own home, Amelia. This isn't just about Lorraine. It's about you and Marcus, too." Inside, I heard Lorraine's laughter drifting down the hall as she watched an old sitcom. I wondered if she knew how much she'd upended our lives, or if she was just clinging to the last remnants of family she had left. That night, Marcus found me on the porch, his face pale in the lamplight. "I'm sorry," he murmured, voice cracking. "I just don't know how to help her. Or you." I feel like I'm failing both of you. For a moment, we sat in silence, the weight of unspoken words pressing down. I wanted to reach for him, but the distance between us felt vast. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I realized how much the fabric of our marriage was being stretched, not by malice, but by sorrow, confusion, and the absence of boundaries. I wanted to believe we could withstand it, but doubt had started to whisper in the dark. If you've ever felt trapped between loyalty and self-preservation, between empathy and exhaustion, you'll understand how torn I felt. And if you're finding this story as relatable, or even just as gripping, as I did living it, don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss what happens next. Because trust me, this is only the beginning. The next day, Lorraine left a note on the fridge. Let's have a family meeting tonight. Love, Mom. My stomach twisted. I had no idea what she wanted to discuss, or how much more our fragile peace could take. But one thing was clear. Something had to change, and soon. The rain outside had turned into a steady drumming, filling every silence in the house with a low, constant pressure. It was as if the sky itself refused to let any of us find peace. Dinner simmered on the stove. A roast chicken Lorraine had seasoned the right way. Her words, not mine. The scent filled every corner of the house, mingling with something sharper and invisible, the tension that no amount of open windows could air out. Marcus and I barely spoke as we set the table. He was unusually quiet, his eyes darting between my face and the glimmer of his phone as if both held some answer he couldn't quite find. Lorraine hummed in the kitchen, her tune strangely out of sync with the storm. I watched her, stiffly rolling napkins the way she liked, folding them into perfect triangles. I used to think these details meant she cared. Now, each precise crease felt like another border being drawn, one triangle at a time, between the life I'd built and the one she was quietly reassembling, piece by piece, to resemble her own. Dinner was a performance. Forks clinked. Marcus tried to make small talk about the new project at work. Lorraine nodded politely, but I could tell she wasn't listening. Her attention kept flicking to my phone, which buzzed on the counter with a message from Priya. Need to talk. How are you holding up? Lorraine reached for the salt, glancing at my phone as if she could see the words. You know, dear, I saw on the news that too much screen time at meals is bad for relationships. I bit back a retort, forcing a smile. It's just Priya checking in. She worries. Lorraine's lips thinned, then parted with a sigh. Friends are important, but family comes first, Amelia. Always. Marcus shifted in his chair, the sound loud in the quiet. Maybe we can just enjoy dinner? I nodded, but the meal felt endless. Lorraine critiqued the salad. A touch more lemon next time, maybe? And rearranged the salt and pepper shakers to their proper place. Every tiny correction was a reminder that this was her space now, or at least that she thought it should be. After dinner, I slipped away for a moment of fresh air on the back porch. The rain had softened, but the chill in the air felt sharper than before. I dialed Priya, pressing the phone close to my ear. I can't do this anymore, Priya, I whispered, keeping my voice low. She's everywhere. She even reorganized the pantry again. Marcus just keeps saying to be patient, but it's like I don't have a say in my own home. Priya's voice was gentle, but edged with concern. You sound exhausted. Have you told Marcus how much this is affecting you? I try, but he's so worried about his mom. I get it. I do. But it's like I'm invisible. I don't know how much more I can take. A noise behind me. The click of the sliding glass door. I turned, startled. There was Lorraine, standing half in, half out of the kitchen, her face pale and unreadable. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, she said quietly, her voice trembling. I just wanted to ask if you needed help with the dishes. I froze, heart pounding. Had she heard everything? The way she wouldn't meet my eyes told me she had. We stood there, the three of us, me, Lorraine, and the awkward silence, until Marcus appeared behind her, worry stitched deep into his brow. Is everything okay? He asked, voice tentative. Lorraine looked at him, then at me. I think we need to talk. The living room felt colder than usual. Rain streaked down the windows, neon reflections from the street outside painting fractured colors on the walls. I sat on the edge of the sofa, Marcus beside me, Lorraine across, twisting a tissue in her lap. No one spoke at first. The only sounds were the distant rumble of thunder and the clock ticking on the mantel, each second stretching longer than the last. Finally, Lorraine broke the silence. I heard what you said, Amelia, about feeling displaced. I didn't realize I was making you feel that way. She took a shaky breath, eyes glistening. When my husband died, I thought the worst thing would be being alone. I didn't know it would be just as hard to be with family and still feel unwanted. I swallowed, guilt and resentment warring inside me. It's not that you're unwanted, Lorraine. This is my home too. I feel like there's no space for me anymore. You change things, make decisions, and I'm always the last to know. Marcus reached for my hand, squeezing it, but his own voice was strained. Mom, I love you. I want you here, but things haven't been easy. Amelia and we're not the same anymore. We barely talk, and when we do, it's always about managing. Lorraine looked at him, her face crumpling. I'm sorry. I thought I was helping. I don't know what to do with myself. After losing your father, I lost my purpose. I thought maybe I could find it here, with you two. But I see now that I've been overstepping. The honesty in her voice surprised me. For the first time, I saw past the criticism and the routines to someone who was just as lost as I was. I found my words slowly. We all want to feel like we belong, but it can't be at the expense of someone else's peace. I need boundaries, Lorraine. We need to talk about what works for all of us, not just what feels safe for one. A tear slipped down her cheek. She dabbed at it, forcing a smile that almost broke my heart. I suppose I've been holding so tightly to what I knew. I didn't see what I was doing. Marcus leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. I should have said something sooner. I didn't want to hurt you, Mom. But I can't keep pretending everything's fine. Amelia's hurting. I'm hurting too. The room was silent again, but it felt different now. Raw and open, like a wound exposed to air. Lorraine nodded, her hands trembling. I don't know what comes next. I can't go back to that empty house, not yet. But I can't stay if I'm tearing you apart. I looked at Marcus, searching his face for an answer. He shook his head. Lost. I don't know either, he admitted. But we can't go on like this. Lorraine stood, smoothing her skirt. Maybe I need to find my own space. Just for a while. Close enough to visit, but not right here. I want you both to be happy, and I can't be the reason you're not. Her words landed between us, heavy and honest. Relief and sadness tangled inside me. It wasn't a perfect solution. It wasn't even a solution yet. But for the first time, the truth was out in the open. We sat together in the quiet, the rain finally easing outside, all of us not quite sure what to say. Lorraine wiped her eyes and managed a small, brave smile. I just wanted a family again. I didn't see that I already had one. I just needed to let it breathe. None of us knew what would happen next, but the unspoken promise was there. We'd face it together, even if it meant being apart for a while. And as the storm outside faded into the hush of night, I realized the hardest part wasn't what we'd said. It was waiting to see what we'd do with the truth we'd finally shared. What would you do in my place? Would you ask your mother-in-law to leave, or try to find a new way to live together as a family? Let me know in the comments. I need all the advice I can get. The morning after that difficult conversation, the air in the house felt different, lighter, but also fragile, like the silence after a storm. For the first time in weeks, I woke up without that knot of anxiety in my chest. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, painting the walls with soft stripes. I could hear Lorraine's slippers moving softly in the hallway, the clink of a mug in the kitchen. It was the same house, but something had shifted between us, something that couldn't be undone, but maybe, just maybe, could be rebuilt. Marcus was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at his hand. He looked up when I sat beside him. Did you sleep at all? I asked gently. He gave a half-hearted laugh. Not much, but I think we needed last night, even if it hurt. He squeezed my hand. I'm sorry it took me so long to see what you were going through. I nodded. There was no need to say more. For the first time, I felt seen, not just as Marcus's wife or Lorraine's daughter-in-law, but as myself. Downstairs, Lorraine was at the kitchen table. She looked up, her eyes a little red but warm. Good morning, she said, her voice cautious. I poured coffee for the three of us. We sat together, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound for a while. I could feel Marcus searching for the right words, but Lorraine spoke first. I've been thinking, she began, folding her hands, about what you both said last night. I didn't realize how much I was holding on, not just to this house, but to the way things used to be. After Harold died, I didn't know who I was without him. I'm sorry, Amelia. I never meant to make you feel unwelcome in your home. Her honesty caught me off guard. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I steadied myself. I know you didn't, and I understand why you needed to be here. But I need you to understand that Marcus and we need space to be ourselves too. This house, it's where we built our life together. Lorraine nodded, her lips trembling a little. I do understand. I think I was afraid to be alone, and I took comfort where I could find it. But you shouldn't have to lose your marriage to give me a roof over my head. Marcus cleared his throat. Mom, we love you. We want you to be okay, but maybe it's time to talk about what comes next. For all of us. We spent the morning talking openly, laying out everything we'd been afraid to say. Lorraine admitted that she'd been reluctant to look for her own place, not just for financial reasons, but because she was scared of the loneliness. Marcus confessed his guilt over his father's death and his urge to fix everything for his mother. I admitted my resentment and my fear that our marriage would disappear under the weight of everyone else's needs. It was painful, but it was real. And as we talked, I felt something in me settle. For the first time, I believed we might actually find a way forward. That afternoon, I called Priya to meet me at our favorite coffee shop. The trees lining the street were just starting to bud, and the city air smelled fresh, washed clean by last night's rain. Priya slid into the booth across from me, her eyes searching mine. "So, how did it go?" she asked, her voice low. I told her everything. The fight, the tears, the honesty we'd finally found. She listened, nodding, her face softening. "I'm proud of you, Ames. It takes guts to have those conversations. Most people just let things simmer until it explodes," Priya said, squeezing my hand. "What's next?" I shrugged, but I was smiling. "We're going to help Lorraine find her own place. Not right away, but soon. We'll help her get settled, and we'll set real boundaries." Marcus and I paused, feeling the weight of my own words. "We're going to put our marriage first again." Priya grinned. "About time." Back at home, Lorraine had started making real plans. She spent the next few days researching apartments nearby, even letting me help her set up a profile on a housing website. I watched as she grew more confident, less afraid. She started going for walks on her own, visiting the local library, even joining a support group for widows at the community center. The house felt less crowded, not because Lorraine was gone, but because we were all starting to breathe again. One evening, Tomas Rivera, our neighbor, caught me outside as I watered the porch plants. He smiled, his usual easy manner. "Things seem quieter over there," he observed, nodding toward our house. I laughed, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "We're working on it. It's not perfect, but we're getting there." He nodded, approving. "Families are messy, but talking, really talking, makes a difference." As the weeks passed, Lorraine found an apartment just a few blocks away. It was small but sunny, with a bay window that overlooked a community garden. On moving day, Marcus and I helped her carry boxes, just as we had the day she arrived, but this time the mood was different. There were hugs, laughter, even a few happy tears. Lorraine looked at me as we unpacked her favorite teacups. "I know I can't thank you enough, Amelia," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I hope you know how much I appreciate all you've done, for me and for Marcus." I hugged her, feeling the truth of it settle in my chest. "You're family, Lorraine, and you always will be. But it's okay for family to live in different houses." The first night without Lorraine in the house, Marcus and I sat on the couch in the quiet, just the two of us. The silence felt different now, peaceful, not strained. He reached for my hand. "We made it," he said softly. "Yeah," I replied. "We did." We talked about everything we'd learned, the importance of boundaries, the necessity of honesty, the strength it takes to ask for help. Marcus promised to never avoid a hard conversation again. I promised to speak up when I felt unheard, instead of letting resentment fester. We both promised to put our marriage first, not out of selfishness, but because a partnership only survives when both people are whole. Life settled into a new rhythm. Lorraine visited often, but now it was by invitation, with clear plans and respect for everyone's time and space. She thrived in her new independence, her grief softening as she found community and purpose outside our walls. Marcus and I rediscovered each other, going on date nights, laughing over old jokes, remembering why we chose this life together. Sometimes I caught myself watching Lorraine as she chatted happily with new friends at the community center, or as she told stories over Sunday dinners. I saw not just my mother-in-law, but a woman rebuilding her life after loss, a woman learning that love doesn't always mean closeness, but sometimes means letting go. One Sunday, as we all sat around the dinner table, Marcus, Lorraine, and me, I realized the house finally felt like home again. Not because everything was perfect, but because we had faced our imperfect reality and chosen to heal, together. And maybe that's the real secret. Families aren't built on proximity or perfection, but on the courage to face the hard things, to speak honestly, and to choose one another, even when it's uncomfortable. If you've ever found yourself in a situation like mine, caught between love, loyalty, and the need for your own space, know that it's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to ask for help. And it's okay to put yourself and your relationship first. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to set tough boundaries with family? What worked for you, and what didn't? I'd love to hear your stories. If you connected with this journey, give this video a like. It helps more people find stories like ours. And if you want to see what happens next in our lives, or or hear more real stories about love, family, and everything in between, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Thank you for being part of this story. Until next time, remember, your home is your heart. Guard it, share it, and never be afraid to fight for your own happiness.